welcome to the second installment of Storytime with Patrick. Today we have a very exciting guest, Keith Daw. You probably know him because he tags a lot of people in disc posts, and they're amazing. And today I wanted to bring him on to talk a little bit about disc, why it's important to him, and his personal story, and how he kind of got here. And at this point, then I'll just pass it right over to you. Why are you here today? Why is this important?
Well, I'm here today because you told me to. Anyway, so disc. I mean, so many different topics that we're all passionate about, of course. But disc is one of those personally and professionally that's near and dear to my heart. Geek out on it all the time. So a little backdrop as to why professionally, before I get into my spot. Over the years, I've come across tons of people that have like, yeah, we did that personality thing when I was applying for a job, or yeah, we did it at like a team builder, and I kind of sort of know what my letter is and kind of realize but I don't really know how to use it. And that's so common. Or there's been some that have said, yeah, I got some insight as to what it is and why it's important, but never really learned how to use it. And it's either because they just were never exposed to why they didn't have that personal epiphany, or B, it just may not have been in the budget for whatever the organization was, but it was a good check in the box from HR, from the executive team, and from there. And so as I'm focusing on sales training, leadership training, customer service training, being a decent freaking human being training, all that kind of stuff, DISC was one of those, wow, greatest communication tool ever created that most people don't know how to use or don't even know exists. So the backdrop on why it's important, and I can share, D, that dominant style, type A personality, all the things that go with it. The I, the influencer, people person, excitable, talkable, let's have fun while we're doing it. The S, looking out for the team, looking out for the family, status quo, here's what's familiar, here's the norm, this is the way we've always done it. The C style, very analytical, the compliant, the rule follower, data driven. Hey, Patrick, I'm happy to do it. Can you give me some examples? Can you show me the facts? Right? So we're all programmed. We have all four of these in us. We're all programmed to work out of our comfort zone, if you will, work out of this natural style. One of them is going to be a primary. Most people would recognize it and identify us with it. There's going to be some others that are going to be maybe secondary, tertiary, but these are the things. If I'm going to ask your peers to give me 10 words to describe, 10 adjectives to describe Patrick, the words that they describe would reflect your results in your DISC profile. It's how this happens. So there's some aha moments when people take the assessment like, wow, that's pretty spot on. How did those funky questions in that 10-minute survey help me do this? But then when they start to realize we all are kind of wired differently, where our communication style, our behavioral style comes from this. And I like people that are going to make decisions and make decisions quickly. Well, I can certainly relate to people that want to take some time and get 3 or 4 other quotes. So there's a lot of these things that can happen. For me, and I usually put teasers out there on LinkedIn. This time, I'm actually going to go ahead and share with your listeners here. I'm a very high D style, always have been, and also have a lot of that C. So kind of checks and balances in my case. So I'm very task oriented, very detail oriented, get stuff done type of focus. Hence my title on LinkedIn. Well, that being said, I can now look back through my sales career, my leadership career, whether I was making outbound calls, whether I was the territory guy, whether I was leading the people, and I single-handedly can see where I either screwed up conversations, screwed up relationships, because even if I had the best of intentions, it came across as too direct. It came across perhaps as too blunt. It came about of, hey, Keith does great stuff, has great stuff, but he's always focused on the things, and the people and the feelings that go with it might come across as secondary. Well, I'm not cold and heartless. It's not like I don't give a crap about these people. It was just my mind is just programmed of here's a scenario. Okay, what steps do we need to do? Timeline, who do we need to bring, right? Whereas somebody else was like, all right, cool, this is going to be great. How do we bring in the team? How's everybody, right? So just everybody's wired to address a situation or a topic differently. And without that self-awareness on my part, I'm like, oh yeah, I totally would have done that differently. And then I'll joke as I'm doing training for any organization, if I had had this back in high school, me being a D style, my sister was an I, my mom was an S, my dad was a C. If I had understood this, it would have been a whole heck of a lot easier instead of a, hey, what do you want to have for dinner? I don't know. Let's do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, will somebody make a freaking decision? Or why don't we just, right? And now all of a sudden everybody stops. I'm like, dude, chill. Right. So these are the things that self-awareness part is huge, sales or leadership. But then doubling on it, mindfulness of others. Not all of us, a one size fits all style communication is not the right approach. So if I'm coaching to you and your style is different than mine, I need to be willing and able to adjust my style a little bit to make sure I can say, hey, Patrick, you mentioned you were going to do some fun stuff over the weekend. Hey, how did that go? Before we jump into your Monday check-in, where I all of a sudden jump right into, okay, cool. Hope you had a good weekend. Tell me about your pipeline, right? And so my natural style would be to do that because, oh my gosh, Patrick might spend 10 minutes of our 15 minutes telling me about his weekend, right? And so I need to do what's important to you in a communication and to adapting. Now you've got 3 or 4 people in a Zoom chat for a prospect spying team, and you have all these different disc styles, and you can only relate to one of them. How you take this and interrelate so everybody's actively involved, because the S is going to be the person doing this. The C is only going to ping you with some very specific why details questions. The I is going to be the one with the greatest background and having lots of fun and probably the coolest shirt. And the D is the person that's going to probably take control of it. And if you're not mindful of it, you're going to address everything the D says. The C only win, and you're going to forget everybody else. And now you're bonding a rapport out the window. So looking at all these different areas where I've screwed it up in sales and leadership, where I've screwed it up personally, that's one of those reasons why I'm so emphatic about making certain you understand, here's my superpowers, how do I use it and what limitations, because we all have our kryptonite, and then how can I create that relatability, create that amazing rapport almost instantaneously by recognizing the cues that Patrick's putting out. So now I can relate and chat to Patrick on his level. And he's like, this guy's cool. He gets me. And at the same time, it might be like, oh crap, that was exhausting because I had to put on my actor role and I had to adapt, but it doesn't mean I can't do it if I learn how to and why.
What were the biggest impacts that you saw when you started implementing this stuff? Like what have you personally seen?
I think part of it was just current clients that were just said, hey, maybe it's just because I'm getting to know you better, but I've recognized a little less intense. In some cases, you're out there as a producer, you're out there as a trainer, and you're hardcore, results, let's get things done. It just helps to relax a little bit. And so it got a chance for them to, from a relatability standpoint, they're like, I like this version of Keith better than that version of Keith. These were some hard, wow, the hell did I look like before, right? And was I being an ass, right? I mean, so there's some of those things where it just helped me to tone down. And it also helped, again, with that relatability factor. I think those were the feedback that I was getting from some other people. Certainly a D style like myself, without realizing, could come across as brash, could come across as arrogant. And anybody that knows me, I'm anything but. I'm an introvert, and believe me, I've screwed up a lot of stuff. I've eaten a lot of humble pie over the years. So I think just not being aware of how my intensity or my passion or oh my gosh, I can help this person, I was being genuine, but I think the level of conviction and that level of energy was a bit overwhelming for some. So this was a big awareness for me to chill out. Not everybody's going to have your sense of urgency. Not everybody's going to have your sense of energy or your focus. And maybe you only need 3 bullets. Maybe they need a 20-minute convo, right? And so that was the part that I was missing, I think, over the years.
So it's something that we've been implementing too in our organization, and a lot of people talk about it as a professional tool, something you can use for a work environment. Is this something that you find is super helpful in your personal life as well? Or?
Oh, absolutely. I could probably find, the professional ones, cost me money over the years, money that I could have made or didn't make as a result of and didn't know about it. But from a personal standpoint, I referenced, that my family, I had moved into a place, had this big picture I want to put on the wall, and I just wanted to get a second set of eyes to make sure that it was straight. So I said, hey, Dad, why don't you come on over? Because, Dad always wants to help, right? And come on over, we'll hang the picture, we'll go grab some beers and some burger and have fun. And it's like, cool. Well, Dad shows up right on time. Dad shows up. He's got his toolkit, his level. He's got all this stuff. And I'm like, what? And he's measuring this and putting little marks on the corners. And I'm like, dude, it's got those little things on the back where you can like push it in and put the hole. I just need a sec. But then I recognize this is 10 minutes, boom, 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 done. But I asked him for his help. So the C styles, anything worth doing right, it's worth doing right the first time. So he wanted to do all the extra steps to make sure he didn't disappoint me, make sure it was done correctly. And I recognized about 24 minutes in, I'm like, you asked for his help, let him do it his way, adapt it, because otherwise now you're going to see him ungrateful. And so for those things from a personal standpoint, Dad, appreciate it, spot on, it appealed to him. He got his little dopamine hit because he got to help out, and then we got to get on to where we needed to. But I just recognized it took 30 minutes to do something. I thought it was 10 because we're wired a little bit differently. And had I not been aware of this, I would have seen ungrateful and probably would have hurt his feelings.
How does this stand out between something like the Myers-Briggs profile? Because that's something that a lot of people have been using to categorize different personalities for a while. What do you find it to be the big differences?
I think part of it is it measures two slightly different things, but it's also ease of use. So for those, I love Myers-Briggs. I geek out on all those things. And somebody's like, hey, here's this cool assessment. I'm like, cool, let me take it. Myers-Briggs, for those that are in, I'm an INTJ. I'm the architect, love to create the things. But unless you are very, very studied, very versed in, you might know here's one or two others that I get along with or might need to work harder with, but there's a lot of letters, a lot of variances. And in the moment, how easy is it for you to go, okay, wait a second, I think Patrick might, no, he's really, right? You can't do that. But now I have 30 seconds, 40 seconds on a quick call with you. There's certain things you're putting down. I'm like, all right, he's totally an I because he's saying, so I think from a, how do I quickly recognize these cues that I can use to adapt on the fly or to prepare for? I think Myers-Briggs is great when you're looking for personal development, maybe when you're looking at team alignment, groups of people, how do I get the right subset and how do I get the master team together? I think that's great. Whereas DISC is, okay, I got 3 back-to-back coaching sessions. All 3 of them are different DISC styles. All 3 of them are different DISC styles than me. How do I take 2 or 3 minutes before each one to get my head in the right game so I can adapt to their style? DISC is that quick ease of use and implementation, where Myers-Briggs takes a certain level of mastery to be able to use it at that kind of a level. So it's just not sustainable within a sales or leadership organization in that capacity.
Gotcha. And a lot of this, you're talking about using it to analyze other people quickly. Let's do that a little bit live then. So like based on our conversation, where do you think I fall?
Oh, without a doubt, you have quite a bit of the influencer, always bringing together people, want to make sure we're having fun, the levity in your posts. And it's one of the things that people recognize and admire about him. This guy puts out great content and he brings in good people to put out great content. He's just fun. I mean, there are times when people just want to, I mean, we had back and forth. How many posts on mint chocolate chip ice cream? We've had, emojis out there. I mean, if there's emojis going on, if there's a bunch of emoji game is strong, chances are there's a lot of I out there. So these are the things where I could send you a quick little check-in. Hey, Patrick, haven't seen you in a while. Things going okay? And you're like, oh, that's awesome, right? So these are the kind of things that you pick up on. And so if I said, all right, we're going to do this podcast, I got 10 minutes, you're like, okay, yeah, we can follow it your way, Keith, or we could just scrap that and have some fun, right? And so I need to be able to understand that. Otherwise, I'm going to be a pain in the ass guest and you're going to get like 3 clicks and they're going to be mercy clicks.
I'm familiar with the mercy click, so that's okay if that happens. So like the one I'm unfamiliar with is C.
Mhm.
That's something that I haven't really run into a lot. That person tends to be like very skeptical, very cautious, right? Like, could you give me an example of someone that fits that profile?
Sure, sure. So C, depending upon which version of, obviously DISC is a concept and it's a theory. It's not one person owns. So it's either going to be compliant or conscientious. They are the critical thinker. I like to mention. So in a lot of cases, it's somebody who's in a very technical or highly complex. They're the analyst. Think about a CFO. Think about an architect. Maybe a CPA. At some point I would find comfort in somebody that's very meticulous with the numbers, very meticulous with the details, compliance. May not, those are going to be perfect. Engineers, we have a lot of clients that work, they're mechanical engineers or working in electrical, working in very complex situations. They might literally be the smartest person in just about any room, but they could also be completely unaware that they are just walking through a process and they've lost everybody because they're talking at a higher level, way too many details. Where I'm just saying, dude, just give me the high view. High view is like 30 seconds, not everything that's in your brain. And so I think the C style, they're also very aware of criticism. So they may not want to say something and put their neck out there, even if it's brilliance. They're very critical of their own work. So they're people that might second guess themselves. You will never get a rough draft from a C style. That's going to be the most beautiful rough draft that you've ever seen. So I think understanding how do you cater to and their conversation so they feel comfortable sharing, particularly in a sales or a coaching situation, but also recognizing this is what they need from you to be able to interact. I need to know the rationale. Give me a precedent. We're changing what we've done. Why are we changing? Give me some examples. Help me understand what the steps might look like. They could be great champions for you from a sales standpoint. They could be phenomenal team members. When they get into a process, boom, they're going to be machines. That's why a lot of professional athletes are C styles. They do the drills, they have the plans, they do their playbook, they follow it. While the I styles want to go ahead and have all their bling and be on TV and do the interviews and do all the fancy dances in the end zone, the C styles are the one we're here to get stuff done, and they're going to follow that playbook.
Yeah, you know me. I'm always wearing all the jewelry and dancing. It's something that's very common for me. So I'm glad you're able to point that out. But I was going to say the C style really sounds a lot like my sales engineers.
Yeah,
Even in a
absolutely.
sales environment, they're very helpful because they're able to break down concepts at such a high level and really get people invested in the technical side. But
Mm-hmm.
I've also seen them go in with like strong sales techniques on top of it, and they weren't even like classically trained, but they
Mm-hmm.
just naturally like go in for the next step and for the close. And they're always driving towards something. So
So
I found that.
very process oriented and natural troubleshooters. Okay, I've been doing this for a long time. Let me go and walk you through. Let me ask you some questions. So those that are aware of let me ask you questions because I'm knowledgeable instead of telling you how knowledgeable I am. The flip side. Uh, Very natural troubleshooters, very process oriented. So even without formal training, there's some that'll get 70, 80% of the way there without even realizing they're getting there. And then you put in the fine tuning of a methodology or whatever. Now they're stone cold killers, but they're doing it very under the radar.
Yeah, they're underrated. I don't know a lot of people that fit that style that are salespeople, but I feel like we should be more actively recruiting them because they're natural salespeople.
They are natural salespeople as long as you give them the I tell people it's like a bowling alley. I'm going to give you the bumper rails. Let them know here's what we're looking to do. Here's your tools. Here's the bumper rails and the parameters. Go at it. It gives them a little bit of leeway based upon their passion and their expertise. But some of the best salespeople I've ever seen, and I'd say I probably have 30% of all the salespeople I train are C styles, and consistently the C styles tend to outproduce than others. May not be the top producer, but they're always the most consistent producer, and usually in the upper 20%.
So with people that are listening right now, as we exit here, Keith, like if somebody wanted to get started into this and start getting their feet wet, where do you recommend that they start?
Well, you could certainly Google free disc training, and hey, something we know what we sometimes get when we get something for free, which might be just at least a way to say, all right, I'm not sure about this. What do I think my thing is? if you do something like that and you're still curious, best bet is to find somebody online in your market, wherever, that I can actually make an investment in yourself or have your boss make an investment in you, whatever. Learn how to use it. Don't just take it, a cheap one, kind of sort of do it and say, hey, I'm a master at it. Actually take some time, make an investment. I have several people that will get plugged into ongoing stuff that we have right now. It's a small little investment in themselves, but that return that they get of like, oh my gosh, all the things I've been doing wrong, I could have done better. I'm a big believer in you should be putting money every year. You should be putting X amount towards your own personal development above and beyond what your company might do for you. And this is one of those that I'd recommend, whether it's $50, $500, 1,000, whatever it is that you can put together, find a way, spend a bunch of chunk on it, because it will make a huge difference in your personal life as well as in your professional. And it just makes things easier. It's more relaxed. It's like a cheat sheet to how to interact with people.
I think I'm going to spend a bunch of chunk and start using that in my day to day.
And a bunch of chunk.
I love that. Well, awesome, Keith. Thank you for being here, man. Is there anything that you want to plug before we go?
No, I think at this point, other than the fact that I'm going to be putting out some disc videos and more disc memes, and how do people pick vacations? How do people voicemails, emails? I love putting out that stuff, and I love to get some interaction. So just find me on LinkedIn and follow along, and feel free to interact and ask questions.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, go check out Keith Daw on LinkedIn. I'll put all his links in the YouTube description box. Again, this is Patrick Downs. Thank you for listening to the second episode of Storytime. I hope we can do more of these. And as we exit here, I just want to remind you, drink plenty of water, go for some walks, exercise, take care of yourself. It's hard right now. All right?
Absolutely.
I love you.
All right.
Thanks for being here, Keith.
Appreciate it, man.